Introduction. Have you ever noticed that, deep down, luxury isn't about spending more? It's about feeling more? It seems strange, almost contradictory. But the most expensive brands in the world don't sell products. They sell identity. While many people chase price, few understand that true power lies in history that we carry on our bodies. And it's curious how sometimes a simple detail, a watch, a bag, a perfume, says more about someone than long introductions. What's most intriguing is that these brands are expensive not because they can afford it, but because we allow them to be. There's a silent game going on. People buy Louis Vuitton, Hermès, Cartier, not just for the object itself, but for the sense of belonging that comes with it. It's almost psychological, and that's why those who control luxury also control the narrative of admiration. Deep down, nobody just wants to buy. They want to be seen in a different way. And that explains why some brands are worth billions while others disappear without a trace. And this is precisely where the secret lies that almost no one realizes. Luxury is less about wealth and more about meaning. Therefore, understanding the world's most expensive brands isn't about learning about fashion. It's about learning about human behavior, desire, power, and even self-esteem. If you want to discover why these brands dominate the market, influence cultures, and shape mindsets, stay with me until the end, because what follows might completely change how you perceive the value of things. There's something almost magnetic about luxury. It's not just about price, but about meaning. When a person holds a Hermès bag, wears a Dior suit, or adjusts a Rolex on their wrist, what they're really carrying is a story, a narrative of success, power, and belonging. Luxury speaks in silence. And in that silence, it says everything. It awakens a desire that goes beyond possession. It's the will to be noticed without needing to say a word. High-end luxury. Brands have understood something that few companies grasp. Selling products is easy, but selling emotional status, it's art. When someone buys a Louis Vuitton piece, they're not just acquiring leather. They're buying a promise of exclusivity, a ticket to an invisible club of the select few. That's why luxury withstands the test of time, even when the world changes, even when trends die. It represents permanence in a volatile world. Interestingly, luxury also reveals the human soul, because the desire for something rare is not just vanity. It's a reminder that we seek meaning. And that's where the power of these brands lies. They make us believe that there is something eternal amidst the ephemeral. Luxury is the meeting point between dream and reality, where each object becomes a symbol of who we want to be. And it is precisely on this silent stage that empires like Louis Vuitton emerge. Louis Vuitton, the tradition of leather and the art of desire. Louis Vuitton has always been more than a brand. It's almost a rite of passage. Anyone who has ever entered an LV store knows that it's not just about choosing a bag, but about participating in an almost choreographed experience. From the way the sales consultants speak to the care given to every detail of the leather, everything is designed so that the person feels they are touching something rare. And it is precisely this process that transforms a simple object into a desire that transcends generations. The curious thing is that the empire began with suitcases. Louis, the founder, understood like few others the importance of creating something functional, but also elegant. He knew that when someone carries something beautiful, they also carry confidence. That's why his suitcases were straight when the world only made rounded trunks. It was pure innovation for the time. Today, when someone buys a Neverfull or a Keepall, they are carrying a piece of that history, a reminder that innovation and tradition can go hand in hand. And perhaps therein lies the brand's great secret. The ability to transform the ordinary into the extraordinary. A wallet becomes a symbol. A suitcase becomes a legacy. A bag becomes a marker of achievements. That is the silent power of Louis Vuitton. It doesn't try to convince anyone. It simply exists, and those who understand, understand. But the truth is, speaking of silent elegance, there is another house that has elevated this art to the level of myth. Chanel, the revolution of timeless elegance. When we talk about Chanel, we talk about revolution. Coco Chanel didn't just create clothes, she created freedom. In a time when women were imprisoned by corsets and social rules, she appeared with straight dresses, light fabrics, and a perfume, the famous number 5, that became practically a manifesto. Chanel always understood that elegance wasn't exaggeration. It was simplicity with attitude. And this vision changed the destiny of fashion forever. The brand embodies a delightful paradox. The simple that costs a lot. The basic that becomes iconic. The minimalism that transcends decades without asking permission. When a person wears a Chanel suit, they are not wearing a tweed suit. They are wearing courage, authority, presence. It's as if the garment silently says, "I know who I am." And curiously, it is this kind of confidence that people seek most. Not the clothes themselves, but the feeling of belonging to the extraordinary. And we can't forget the classic Chanel No. 5 perfume, which has become more famous than many celebrities. It's living proof that a luxury brand doesn't sell a product. It sells an experience. One spray and the person feels part of a sophisticated, almost cinematic narrative. And the truth is, when it comes to brands that transform objects into symbols, there's one that masters this game like no other. Hermès, where time and scarcity are worth more than gold. Hermès. The value of time and scarcity. Hermès is the kind of brand that doesn't shout, it whispers. And yet, the whole world stops to listen. The truth is, nobody buys a Birkin or Kelly bag just for the impeccable leather. They buy it so that nobody can easily have one. Hermès masters the art of scarcity like no other house. Endless waiting lists, artisans who take years to master a single technique, and absolute control over production. The luxury here is not in the object, but in the time it takes to exist. One curious detail is that each Hermès bag is made by a single artisan from start to finish, as if it were a signed work of art. There is no mass production. There is no rush. And when something takes time to come into being, we automatically acquire more respect for it. It's like an aged wine, a carefully composed piece of music, or a hand-cut jewel. Hermès doesn't sell products. It sells patience, exclusivity, and history within each stitch. And what's most fascinating is that, even in a fast-paced, immediate digital world, Hermès continues to grow, precisely by maintaining the opposite rhythm. The faster the world moves, the more it appreciates. The brand understands that true luxury isn't about speed, but about permanence. And when we talk about rebirth, reinvention, and the power of storytelling, it's impossible not to think of the creative explosion that made Gucci rise from the ashes. Gucci, the renaissance of style and the power of storytelling. Gucci is perhaps the best modern example of how a brand can literally rise from the dead, when it finds the right narrative. There was a time when Gucci was seen as outdated, almost lost. But a creative shift, bold, theatrical, full of personality, was enough to transform the brand into a cultural phenomenon. Suddenly, wearing Gucci wasn't just about fashion. It was about embracing a vibrant, exaggerated, almost cinematic identity. And that rekindled the global desire for the GG logo. The highlight of Gucci lies precisely in this audacity that blends tradition with rebellion. Classic, tailoring sharing space with psychedelic prints, retro jackets coexisting with futuristic pieces. Everything fits together as if the chaos had been carefully planned. That's why so many celebrities have embraced the brand. Gucci allows a person to be multifaceted, different, unpredictable. It's the kind of brand that says, you can be exactly whoever you want to be, as long as you're unforgettable. And perhaps that's the biggest secret to Gucci's rebirth. It sells freedom of expression. It's not just about dressing the body, but about dressing the soul. And ultimately, that's what makes a brand powerful, when it translates feelings that people don't have the courage to express on their own. But when it comes to transforming a small object into a global symbol, there's one brand that does it like no other: Rolex, where each tick-tock carries the weight of an achievement. Rolex, the watch that became a symbol of achievement. Rolex is not just a watch, it's a milestone. When someone puts a Rolex on their wrist, they're not just looking at the time, they're looking at their own journey. Rolex has become a universal symbol of achievement because it carries this silent aura of "I made it." It's almost as if each tick-tock reminds the wearer of all the hours invested, the sleepless nights, the goals achieved. It's not about ostentatious luxury. It's about intimate recognition, the kind that doesn't need applause. What's most interesting is that the brand has established itself not only through its impeccable aesthetics, but also through its extreme functionality. A Rolex was created for divers, mountaineers, explorers, people who needed to trust their equipment. And this practical origin ended up becoming a perfect metaphor. An object made for those who take risks, for those who advance, for those who tread where few tread. That's why so many business people, athletes, and leaders choose Rolex as their personal trophy. It doesn't represent luxury. It represents overcoming challenges. And amidst all this, there's a curious detail that few people notice. Rolex never ran sensationalist campaigns. It never needed to ask to be desired. It simply exists, solid, constant, eternal. And this constancy is so valuable that whoever wears a Rolex feels they are carrying not just a watch, but a history of discipline and courage. But when it comes to transforming objects into symbols of power, no house does it with as much brilliance as Cartier. Cartier. Jewelry as the language of power. Cartier is the kind of brand that can't be explained. It's recognized. There's something almost ritualistic about the moment someone opens a little red Cartier box. That deep red. The shine that appears even before touching the piece. The immediate feeling of being in the presence of something that will last more than a lifetime. It's no coincidence that kings, queens, presidents, and celebrities have chosen Cartier for decisive moments. The brand doesn't sell jewelry. It sells symbols. And symbols speak a language that everyone understands. What's most fascinating about Cartier is how it manages to transform metal and stone into emotional messages. A love bracelet, for example, is not just a bracelet. It's a commitment. It literally comes with a screwdriver, as if to say, this is too important to be easily removed. The Panthère line, on the other hand, carries a feline energy of strength and autonomy. Each collection conveys a feeling, a power, a state of mind. And that's why Cartier has endured through the centuries without losing its relevance. And there's something almost philosophical about it. Jewels are small objects, but they carry gigantic meanings. When someone wears Cartier, they're saying, I understand my worth. It's a silent affirmation of identity, strength, and self-confidence. And that's exactly the kind of message other houses try to convey, but few succeed with such elegance. And speaking of elegance, history, and reinvention, it's impossible not to look at Dior, which redefined what it means to be feminine in the world of luxury. Dior, the haute couture that redefined femininity. When Christian Dior presented the new look in 1947, the world stopped. After years of war, rationing, and restrictive clothing, Dior brought full skirts, cinched waists, and a femininity so exuberant it seemed like a rebirth. Dior didn't just create fashion, he gave hope. And that's something few brands manage to do. transform fabric into emotion, sewing into rebirth, beauty into power. Every Dior piece carries a breath of fresh air. Over time, Dior has become synonymous with impeccable haute couture, the kind that makes anyone feel like they're living in a classic film. But the brand has also evolved. Today it combines tradition with modernity, romanticism with strength, delicacy with freedom. The Lady Dior bags, for example, say all this in silence. Small, structured, elegant, yet powerful. They carry the essence of the brand: impactful, softness, dominant sweetness and elegance that makes a statement. And yet, behind all that beauty, there's a profound philosophy. Dressing someone is helping that person see their best version. Dior has always understood this. It's no wonder that so many artists, leaders, and influential women fall in love with the brand. And speaking of minimalist elegance and quiet power, there's a house that has made simplicity extraordinarily valuable: Prada, where minimalism comes at a high price. And it makes perfect sense. Prada, minimalism that costs a fortune. Prada is living proof that luxury doesn't need to shout to dominate a space. In fact, the brand built its empire by doing the exact opposite: being discreet, minimalist, and extremely intelligent in what it chooses to showcase. The classic black nylon, a simple, almost banal material, became a global object of desire in Prada's hands. This shows that luxury isn't in the material, but in the interpretation. Prada manages to transform the basic into art, and that's rare in the fashion world. The most interesting thing is that wearing Prada conveys a silent but powerful message: I have good taste, and I don't need to prove anything to anyone. It's like that friend who arrives well-dressed without any visible logo, but everyone knows he knows his stuff. Prada is for those who value sophistication without ostentation, modernity without excess. Its clean lines, geometric shapes, and bold design choices show that elegance can also be a form of rebellion. And this refined rebellion conquered the world precisely because of its sincerity. Prada doesn't try to please. It sets the pace. Its pieces speak to people who appreciate exclusivity, but prefer to show it subtly. And this minimalist aesthetic paved the way for other legacy brands, especially those that combine British tradition with global modernity. And few do this as well as the next brand on the list: Burberry, where past and present are masterfully interwoven. Burberry, the British legacy of contemporary luxury. Burberry is one of those brands that carry such a strong identity that a single glance is enough to recognize it. The trench coat, the iconic plaid, the beige that has become its signature. The most curious thing is that Burberry was born much more out of functionality than fashion. Its coats were created to withstand the rain and the British cold, but quickly became a symbol of elegance. It's fascinating to see how something so practical has transformed into a global object of desire. And that's one of the greatest powers of luxury. Over the years, the brand has faced highs and lows, almost getting lost amidst market changes, but its return was epic. All it took was a clear strategy: reclaiming its legacy, modernizing its aesthetic, and elevating the check pattern to an almost artistic level. Today, Burberry speaks to people who value tradition but also appreciate a good dose of contemporary style. It's the kind of brand that suits everyone: discreet executives, urban youth, and lovers of classic fashion. Burberry has that rare versatility. And what's most interesting is how the brand stays true to its British roots, even while being global. It symbolizes that clean, organized elegance, with a cool and sophisticated touch that only London knows how to deliver. Wearing Burberry is almost like carrying a piece of English culture on your body: tradition, cloudy weather, and lots of style. And now that we've explored all 10 brands, we're ready to open the final loop and connect this entire journey to something even deeper. After learning about the silent workings behind high-end luxury brands, one question remains: what truly has value in your life? Because luxury, in the end, isn't just about handbags, watches, or perfumes. It's about what you decide to build, what you choose to carry in your soul, and what you allow the world to see when you enter any place. The question is, what marks have you left on the people around you? Now that you understand the logic behind desire, status, and identity, it's worth reflecting on. What have you been consuming? And what has that been transforming you into? Isn't it time to invest in something that elevates who you are, and not just what you show? Perhaps your next big change won't be in buying something expensive, but in cultivating something valuable. And that starts with awareness, knowledge, and the courage to make better choices. So I ask you, which of these brands impressed you the most, and why? Which one sparked an insight or changed your perspective on value and meaning? Tell me in the comments. And of course, if this content opened your mind, subscribe to the channel, turn on notifications, and keep learning with me. Because here, every video is designed to help you see the world and yourself with new eyes.